My mother didn't even pause her carving knife when she said it. Your sister's family will always come first. You are always last. My father nodded as if it were weather, not a verdict. I didn't argue. I just said, good to know. That was the moment I stopped waiting for a place at their table. I pulled my money back, my time back, my plans back. Separate life, separate future. And just when the silence between us finally felt clean, the family emergency hit them harder than any of us expected. They came to my door together, and they thought I would open it. But I grew up in a house where the walls carried a quiet ranking system. You could hear it in the way footsteps changed depending on who walked in or how conversations rose when Lila entered and thinned out when I did. No one said it outright back then. They didn't have to. The hierarchy lived in the small things. When Lila turned 16, the whole driveway glowed. My parents had parked a new car under the streetlight, the paint catching every shimmer. They stood beside it, waiting with a camera. I watched from the upstairs window as they handed her the keys, my mother's voice sharp with pride. Your future is worth investing in, she said. 6 months later, on my 16th birthday, the kitchen light hummed over a small cake. No candles, no surprise waiting outside, just my father sliding a simple card across the counter. We're proud of you, it said in printed letters. I smiled anyway. I knew the script. Lila got the spotlight. I got the quiet nod. College followed the same pattern. Lila received checks for tuition, for books, for the apartment near her campus. I got a lecture about responsibility and the satisfaction of earning my way. You're independent, my mother said, as if it were a flaw I'd chosen. You manage fine. So I did. I stocked shelves in the early morning, wrote code for small freelance projects at night, and saved every spare dollar for community college. During my last shift at the grocery store before fall semester, I remember looking at the break room fridge. Someone had taped a picture of their family vacation on it. Beaches, umbrellas, arms thrown over shoulders. It struck me, Lila had albums full of those moments. I didn't have a single family photo after age 13 where I wasn't standing on the edge of the frame. Graduation day for my associate degree came and went. My parents were out of town that weekend for Lila's baby shower. I crossed the stage alone, my name echoing in a hall of strangers. Afterward, I called home. My mother answered between errands. That's wonderful, honey, she said. But Lila's contractions started early, and we're helping her organize the hospital bag. I'll call you later. She didn't. When I transferred to a 4-year university on a partial scholarship, they called it a nice little achievement. Lila's wedding, however, was the event of the decade. They walked through the reception hall like they'd built it themselves. I stood near the bar while relatives told me how lucky I was to have a sister with such a perfect life, as if her shine somehow reflected on me. It didn't. Not really. After I graduated with my engineering degree, after the long nights, after choosing survival over sleep, more times than I could count, I waited to see if someone would notice. My mother congratulated me between pouring juice for Lila's toddler. My father asked if I had any prospects yet, while Noah talked loudly about refinancing their house. No one asked how I managed it alone. No one asked what I wanted next. By then I had learned to stop expecting space to open for me. I carved out my own small, at first, a few investments, strict budgeting, a quiet apartment with dim morning light. My name wasn't on the wall of family photos, but it was finally on my own lease, my own plans, my own future. Looking back, I can see the pattern clearly. Every celebration, every crisis, every season, Lila centered me orbiting. That was the day somewhere between the car keys I never held and the cake I blew out alone, I learned my place in this family. The message came late on a Wednesday, a short line from my mother family meeting Sunday. Important, no context, no question if I was free. It felt like an appointment, not an invitation. When I walked into the living room that weekend, the air was tight with quiet panic. Papers were spread across the coffee table, payments overdue, notices, printed statements with highlighted sections. Lila sat stiff, hands clasped. Noah avoided eye contact. My parents had pulled both recliners forward as if positioning themselves at the head of a negotiation. My mother didn't waste time. There's been a situation, she said. Your sister and Noah are facing some financial strain. Strain was an understatement. The mortgage was months behind. The kids' school tuition hadn't been paid. A legal issue my mother skimmed over it quickly had left Noah unable to work for now. Every number on the page pointed in the same direction: collapse. My father sighed, tapping the stack of bills. "We've done the math. Your mother and I can cover part of it, but not all. Lila needs immediate help." I waited. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I wanted to see how long it would take. Not long at all. My mother leaned forward. "We expect you to take care of the rest. You're single, you have a stable job, and you don't carry the same expenses. It just makes sense." There it was, the quiet truth laid bare again. Lila first, me last, always. No one asked whether I could afford it. No one asked if I was already carrying my own burdens. No one asked anything. They simply assumed. My father slid a printed list across the table. "This is what we need covered immediately. Mortgage catch-up, tuition payment, retainer for legal fees, monthly estimates highlighted in yellow, expected, assigned, mine." Lila whispered, "We really need you, Carenza." As if need itself was a currency I owed. The room blurred in soft edges, the ticking clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the weight of years pressing on the same bruise. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just looked at the numbers, then at them, and let the silence settle. They expected me to pay. I only said, "I'll need 24 hours. The drive home was strangely quiet. No music, no podcasts, just the low hum of my old car and the echo of my mother's voice circling back in perfect clarity. "You're always last." It had been said in passing, tossed across a dinner table like a napkin, but it lived deep in the walls of our house, in the pattern of every choice they'd ever made. That truth had finally spoken itself aloud, and now they wanted me to forget it because they needed something. I parked, locked the door behind me, and stood in the stillness of my apartment. Clean, sparse, a place built by my own hands, my own money, my own choices. For years I had carried their expectations, quietly accommodating them without protest because resistance felt pointless. But the silence now felt different, charged, clear. I opened my laptop. First, accounts. Checking savings investment portfolios. The numbers didn't surprise me. I'd memorized them the way some people memorize birthdays. Years of controlled spending, strict budgets, automatic deposits into long-term funds. I lived like someone who always expected the world to forget her, and that discipline had built a foundation no one in my family knew existed. My fingers moved steadily. I separated everything. New folders, new labels, personal, private, secure. Then I pulled up statements, months, then years, then the whole archive. I dragged them into a fresh folder on my desktop. Independent was what I named it. It felt accurate. On the other side of the room, Ava set down a bag of takeout. She didn't speak. She didn't ask. She just watched me the way she always did, quietly, without assumption. When she finally crossed the room, she placed her hand on the back of my chair. "You're not choosing against them," she said. "You're choosing for yourself." I didn't answer, but the words settled in my spine like alignment. I opened a spreadsheet next. Columns, formulas, projections. I mapped out exactly what they had asked of me: mortgage, catch-up, school tuition, legal retainer, estimated monthly overflow. Numbers don't lie. And these numbers were not a request. They were a restructuring of my life to save someone else's. For years, they'd dressed it as love, responsibility, family duty. But I had been paying full price for a place I was never allowed to sit. The cursor blinked. I added another column. Terms. If I helped, and I wasn't sure I would, it would not be the way they expected. Not charity, not sacrifice, not the old cycle where pain was the price of belonging. I drafted the framework slowly, a loan with interest, a 5-year repayment plan, mandatory financial counseling, mandatory family therapy, written acknowledgement of the favoritism I had lived under for nearly 3 decades, a new structure for every future request written, proposals, clear limits, no guilt. Each condition was clean, neutral, administrative, nothing vengeful, everything fair. I printed the draft and set it aside. Then I reached for the next layer of the plan boundaries. I scrolled through my banking apps and removed every auto payment connected to family expenses, old holiday contributions, split purchases for Lila's kids, a streaming subscription my parents never reimbursed me for. Small things but symbolic. Quiet leaks I'd allowed for years. Delete, delete, delete. Each confirmation screen felt like a stone lifted off my chest. I went to my email next, typed a short message, saved it as a draft. If things escalated, I'd send it without hesitation. Simple, firm. I will not assume responsibility for decisions I did not make. My apartment was silent except for the soft hum of the heater kicking on. Ava sat on the couch now, legs folded beneath her, watching me without interrupting. There was no pity in her eyes, only recognition. "You've been holding your breath your whole life," she said gently. "Tonight is the first time I've seen you exhale." Maybe she was right. My shoulders felt lower, my jaw unclenched. I returned to the table, gathered the printed pages into a neat stack and placed them inside a plain folder. No dramatic labels, no markings, just order. I imagined the scene tomorrow, my parents leaning forward, Lila wringing her hands, Noah rehearsing justifications, all of them assuming my 24 hours were spent finding a painless way to give them everything. They had no idea this silence was not submission. It was preparation. I closed the folder. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Anger requires hope. Hope that someone will see you, choose you, treat you differently. I didn't hope for that now. I only wanted truth, structure, and a life that finally belonged to me. Iva's voice softened. "What happens tomorrow?" I slid the folder into my bag. I tell them I said that I don't fix what they break anymore. They were already seated when I arrived. Same living room, same recliners pulled forward, same stack of bills spread across the table like an altar built for urgency. But this time, something was different. I wasn't carrying guilt. I was carrying a folder. Ava walked beside me, quiet, steady. She took a seat near the window. She wasn't there to argue. She was there to witness. My mother clasped her hands. "Good. You're here. We can sort it all out now." My father exhaled with relief. "We knew you'd come through Carenza." Lila gave a trembling smile. "We really appreciate this." They were thanking me for a decision I had not made. I sat down, placed the folder on the table, and lifted the cover. Bank statements, investment summaries, retirement allocations, target date portfolios, stock option agreements, all neatly arranged. The room shifted. My mother leaned forward first, her eyes narrowing. What is all this?" I slid one page toward her. Context. My father reached for another, scanning the numbers. The rustle of paper was the only sound. He froze halfway through. It wasn't just the balance. It was the realization, sharp, sudden, that they knew nothing about my life. Every assumption, every idea of who I was crumbled in his hands. My mother's voice went thin. "Why didn't you ever tell us you were doing this well?" "You never asked," I said. Silence dropped clean and absolute. I pulled out the next document, the loan terms. Noah leaned forward, brow furrowed. "Is this a contract?" I nodded. "If you want financial help, it won't be blind sacrifice. It will be structure." My mother recoiled. "Structure. For family. For adults," I corrected. My father scanned the page. 5-year repayment, interest, monthly installments, financial counseling. His voice cracked on the last words. "It's standard," I said. "If I help you learn how not to need me again." Lila stared at me, eyes wide wounded. "You're making us sign something. We're your family." "You made me responsible for your decisions," I said calmly. "This prevents that from happening again." Noah bristled. "This feels fair." I cut in. "It feels fair." He went silent. I continued. "There's more." I turned to my parents. "You'll attend therapy, not to assign blame, but to understand the system we've all been living in." My mother stiffened. "We're not dysfunctional. You told me I was always last," I reminded her quietly. That was dysfunction speaking. She looked away. And I added, "There will be public acknowledgement. At the next family gathering, you will address the favoritism, the imbalance, the history of expectation placed only on me." My father shook his head. "This is humiliating." "It's honest," I said. "Humiliation only happens when the truth is too heavy to hold." The room tightened around us, everyone suddenly smaller in their chairs. Finally, I pushed the last document toward them. This is what you asked from me. Mortgage catch-up, tuition, legal retainer. These are your numbers. This is the cost of your choices. The terms sat openly before them, clear, neutrally, unemotional. My mother whispered, "You really won't help unless we agree to this." I met her gaze. I said, "Good to know at Thanksgiving." I meant it. Once I understood my place in this family, I stopped standing in the space you carved out for me. If I'm always last here, then I have to be first in my own life. No one spoke. I reached into the folder one more time and placed a pen on top of the contract. It rolled slightly, then stilled. "You have 24 hours, I said, the same time you gave me." My father swallowed hard, and if we say no, I stood lifting my bag. Ava rose beside me. Then I said, "You handle your own emergencies, just like I learned to handle mine." I walked to the door. Behind me, the room stayed frozen. 6 months passed before I walked back into that house. Not for a crisis, not for a demand, just for a scheduled family therapy session, our last one. The changes didn't happen overnight, but they happened. Lila and Noah had signed the terms. Every installment of the loan arrived on the same day each month, transferred cleanly without excuses. The financial counseling had reshaped the way they moved through the world. Their spending grew quieter, their decisions more deliberate. They no longer spoke as if their needs were gravity. Everyone else must orbit. My parents changed too, though their changes came slowly like thawing ground. In therapy, Dr. Miriam guided them toward words they had spent years avoiding. Patterns, imbalance, expectations, truths spoken without flinching. My mother cried the first time she said, "We didn't see you." My father cried the first time he believed her. And me, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting anymore. My life had widened. I'd moved into a brighter apartment in the city, one with tall windows, where the mornings felt like a beginning instead of a negotiation. My desk held only what mattered: my laptop, a mug, and a small plant Ava bought because she said every new chapter needed something living. We spent slow Sundays exploring neighborhoods, stopping for coffee, speaking about futures without measuring them against anyone else's needs. She never asked me to shrink. I never expected her to rescue. We met in the middle, two people building something without ghosts tugging at the edges. On quiet nights, I cooked while she read on the couch. Sometimes she'd look up and say, "You seem lighter," and I realized she was right. My shoulders no longer curled inward, my hands no longer tightened around invisible expectations. Silence didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like air. The loan statements from Lila and Noah were tucked in a drawer, organized but no longer emotional. Proof that fairness could exist where chaos once lived. Before leaving the final session, Dr. Miriam said gently, "This is a family learning to walk differently, and you were the one who changed the ground beneath them." Driving home, evening light stretched across the road. My apartment waited quiet, warm mine. For the first time in my life, nothing felt borrowed. I placed my keys on the table, the metal soft against the wood, nothing like the glittering set my sister once held in the driveway. This set was quiet, earned, chosen. The window was open just enough for the evening air to move through the room, steady and cool. Ava was in the kitchen, humming softly, the kind of sound that didn't ask anything of me. Families don't always change because they want to. Sometimes they change because someone stops carrying the weight for them. I believed them when they said I was always last. That's when I stopped standing in line.